And once again, welcome to another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I am so excited to be here. Don't forget, you can catch an episode Mondays through Fridays on WQEE 99.1 FM The Key from 2 to 3. On the show, I've got somebody who's on from 12 to 2 on WQEE. So I guess you could say this is our official crossover show. I'm super excited to have Rod Pederson back on, host of the Rod Pederson Show. You can catch him Mondays through Fridays on WQEE from 12 to 2. Please welcome to the show, Rod Pederson. Rod, how you been?
Really good, brother. As a Happy New Year, if that's
Happy
still
New
a
Year.
thing. If that's still a thing. And hey, my viewers and listeners loved when you were on. I feel like you and I got to get together more.
Absolutely. I really had a blast being on your show. It's always great when you can come on my show. I love this crossover show that we're having, and hearing you on WQEE, and then my show's on afterwards. But we got a very busy next couple of weeks. We got the Super Bowl coming up. It's in Las Vegas, Super Bowl 58. It's the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, we've seen this before. This is the rematch of Super Bowl 54. As a 49ers fan, I remember it very thoroughly. I feel like the 49ers are out for revenge. I know the whole world is picking Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, Travis Kelce. Taylor Swift is going to be there. I mean, besides all the hype, what do you look forward to the most about Super Bowl? The Super Bowl, the game itself, and all the events leading up to Super Bowl weekend.
Well, it's a loaded question. It's a lot of things I'm looking forward to, Richard. I mean, we're going. 2 years ago, I was there in Los Angeles doing our show. Didn't go to Arizona last year. Can't remember why. But now we're going to Las Vegas. Going to be doing the show there Thursday, Friday here on WQE. And then I'm hosting an event on Sunday called Sober Bowl. Lee Steinberg, Ryan Leaf, Earl Campbell, and I are going to be part of a panel. Going to be a lot of sober sports and entertainment people there, and we're going to watch the game. It's going to be a great week leading up to the game, and then just the hype that is the game itself. I mean, if you're going for the Niners, I got Brian Snow, my guy's going for the Niners. Seems like everybody's going for the 49ers, man. And they opened as 49ers opened as favorites. Did you see that, Richard?
Yeah, I think the line's going to change. It actually started at 2.5, and then an hour later, it went all the way down to 1. It looks like a lot of people are picking for the Kansas City Chiefs. And really, this underdog mentality, Patrick Mahomes, 2 road playoff wins as an underdog. And this Kansas City Chiefs team, if this team wins the Super Bowl, this will be probably the least talented Kansas City Chiefs team that Patrick Mahomes has had. But what he has done, 4 Super Bowls out of the last 5 years is absolutely incredible. I don't think that anybody is off to the start, and that includes Tom Brady, as far as starting an NFL career. And Patrick Mahomes, let's say the Chiefs win it, Patrick Mahomes will have 3 Super Bowls, and he would be on pace to eclipse Tom Brady's record of 7. And it's still a long way to go. But I don't know if it's going to be that easy, Rod. I think that the 49ers right there, if you want to take these 2 best teams, the best team out of the AFC over the last 6 years and the best team out of the NFC are playing in the Super Bowl. This is not necessarily the matchup that the entire country wants, but it's going to be an exciting Super Bowl, and I think the 49ers are going to keep it close.
What do they want? I mean, I'm happy with anything, man. Any matchup I'd have been happy with. And to be honest, going into championship final weekend of the Final Four, we talked about it a lot on our show, and I said San Francisco, I believe, was the most talented still alive of the Final Four. The most talented. And the football analysts on my show go, oh, no. They said, no, it's Baltimore. Baltimore's the best. How'd that turn out? So, right? So you talk about the 49ers being hungry. That will be their edge. That has to be their edge. But with the Chiefs appearing in their fourth Super Bowl, there's a lot to do with having been there before. Brock Purdy has not been. I mean, if we're going to sit here and talk about this much about quarterback play, you got to give the edge to Patrick Mahomes in probably every regard. Like, I mean, all year long, for whatever reason, I watched more Chiefs games than just about any. And I didn't think they were the same team, Richard. I don't know about you from what we've become accustomed to. Yet they keep winning. They keep winning. Chris Jones blew up the line of scrimmage the other day. Lamar Jackson did not have a good game for the Ravens at quarterback. And I expect the 49ers can come play their best. It's going to be a hell of a football game. And when you talk about the trajectory of careers, I appreciate it. You're the second person to bring that up today about how Mahomes might have a better start first 7 years than Brady. But they're different teams, different strategies, different coaches. Of course, you're going to compare them, but I don't think there is a comparison. But I have a tough time not loving Patrick Mahomes because there's a lot of haters. Like even when he was being compared to Troy Aikman. Troy's my guy, Richard. Troy's my guy. And a couple of years ago, Aikman was like, don't even talk to me till he's at 3 Super Bowls. Well, at that time, he had 1. And in a couple of weeks' time, he could be at 3 and just getting started.
All right, Rod, let's talk about the 49ers. They make it to the NFC Championship 3 straight years. They finally get over the hump. Kyle Shanahan, in 2 weeks in a row, finally wins games where he is trailing by more than 7 going into the fourth quarter. And they were down 24-7 to the Detroit Lions in that first half. And I'll be honest with you, I thought it was over. The Lions physically dominated the 49ers in that first half, and it was with the ground game. They were averaging 9 yards a carry. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and they couldn't stop them. Ben Johnson had the most excellent game plan in that first half. And I really didn't think the 49ers made adjustments. I just think, they start the second half, they kick the field goal. The Lions, second half, they were still moving the football. And then probably the most crucial point of the game, the Lions are up 24-10. And their head coach, who has been aggressive all year, this is the Lions' identity, is to be aggressive, goes for it on fourth down when if you kick the field goal to go up 27-10, now that's a 3-score lead for the Lions. I think, Rod, that was the biggest decision that completely flipped the momentum of that game.
Well, I won't disagree. And we had a lot of fun talking about this on our show on Monday. So 4th and 2 from the 49ers 28. Let's put it this way. Was it a mistake? In retrospect, you would say yes. But let me ask you this, Richard. Do you think Dan Campbell would do it again? Because I think he would.
Absolutely.
Right. Yes. So that's what they do. That's what they do. And his explanation afterwards was somewhat flimsy. What did he say? They wanted to keep the ball control. They wanted to keep the 49ers offense off the field. It blew up in their face. Football is the ultimate hindsight game. There's no two ways about that. And it was a big momentum swing, but I'm not going to hang the loss on that. 98% of people are, but I'm not. That was a complete second half implosion. It's a 60-minute game, and the 49ers know that. And I feel like the Lions didn't know that.
Well, if you're going to go for it, you needed to go for it to end the first half. You're up 21-7. You're right at the goal line. Go for it then. Go up 28-7 and really put the 49ers out of their misery. I still think that the 49ers were going to keep it close. I didn't think they were going to win even after that halftime. It was the Detroit Lions had a 91.5% chance to win. I was actually looking at the score projection. The San Francisco 49ers did what they had to do. That catch by Brandon Ayuk. Wow. I was completely stunned. And 49ers caught a lot of breaks. And, they capitalized.
That's where the score projections and analytics don't factor in God shots, because that's what that was. That was a miracle, which Do your listeners know that you're from San Francisco? That's the explanation as to why you're a 49ers fan. Do they know that? Because I know
Born
that.
and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've lived in Georgia since 2006. I root for the Falcons on the side because they are the local team in Georgia, but I've been a lifelong 49ers fan. And a lot of Falcons fans do not like the 49ers because of Kyle Shanahan. And I have a lot of friends who are Lions fans. And I tell you, Rod, they are absolutely heartbroken this morning because the Lions they were going to the Super Bowl. This was the closest that the Detroit Lions had to go into the Super Bowl.
I never thought that they were. They got to, and which, by the way, people want to hang us on Dan Campbell. Did you see how many drops there were in the game by guys wearing white uniforms, Richard?
Reynolds, well, on that fourth down, Amon St. Brown, you had that one in the flat that would have given the Lions big time yardage, and then the Lions had to punt it back to the 49ers. The special teams blunder, not pinning it down at the one, it goes into the end zone for a touchback. The 49ers, because they were playing at home and they had that crowd behind them, the momentum in that game completely shifted. Even when the 49ers tied it, I felt, okay, the Lions, they go back to what they do best, and they were moving the football in the 49ers in that first half. I thought they were going to still do that, and they did, and they got into a situation where they're down 27-24. At that moment, you kick the field goal to tie it up. You have to. You can't go for it there. I know that Dan Campbell wanted to be aggressive and try to maybe get a score and then force Brock Purdy to try to win it with a touchdown, eat up as much clock as possible. But right then and there, I thought that was the ball game because the 49ers, with a 27-24 lead, just ran the ball with Christian McCaffrey. That 3rd and 4, Brock Purdy had incredible runs to pick up the first down, and that right there sealed the game. And all the naysayers that said that Brock Purdy was a game manager, well, guess what? He's playing in the Super Bowl, and this is just incredible if you're a 49ers fan, and really a great story for Brock Purdy.
Well, I think that if it was any other team but the 49ers, you were looking at it from a fan's lens. When you thought it was over, when they were down 21-7 or 24-10, that's because you love them so much. I don't care who wins. And I was like, this is a 60-minute game, and they've been there. And this is 2 weeks in a row that Brock Purdy has led comeback wins. So I don't think he cares what anybody says about him. Nobody's calling him Mr. Irrelevant anymore. And to sit here, it's too early to sit here and talk about what we think is going to happen in the Super Bowl. It's the Chiefs' experience versus the 49ers' hunger and edge. Chip on their shoulder type thing. What's going to be stronger? That's what's going to decide it, but I don't know the answer to that,
Well, one thing, the 49ers getting back here after going to the Super Bowl 4 years ago in Miami, and then they make it to the NFC Championship with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then Kyle Shanahan does a very unpopular move. So the 49ers, I think that's you. I don't know if
it's me. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
A lot of action here. A lot of action.
Lot of action where you are. I'm actually at the comfort of my home. This is just a virtual background in Columbus. But the 49ers, they trade 3 number 1 draft picks to get Trey Lance because Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he was a good quarterback and he led the 49ers to the Super Bowl, he was always injury prone. You saw that in 2020 when the 49ers missed the playoffs, and they had just about everybody injured in 2020. 2021, they got lucky and they were able to make it to the NFC Championship because, they beat the Cowboys and the Packers on the road, which they should have lost to Green Bay in the divisional round. I mean, that was just Talona Hufanga had that blocked punt in the end zone, and Jimmy Garoppolo marches them down, and they kick the game-winning field goal. But they lose to the Rams, even though they had a double-digit lead. Jaquiski Tart drops that interception. Rams are in the Super Bowl. The 49ers feel, hey, we've got to make a move. And so they draft their quarterback of the future as, at the time, so it seemed, the number 3 overall pick, Trey Lance. And in his first game, so they still have Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance in 2022. And in his first game, he was okay. I mean, he did pretty good. Jimmy Garoppolo was good. And, the 49ers, they get back to the NFC Championship, but this is when Trey Lance gets hurt in the beginning of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. And then as a 49er fan, I'm thinking, I have no idea who this Brock Purdy guy is because he's their third string quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant. He's the last player picked in the draft. And he wins the game. And then when he took on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, he's throwing the football and he is just airing it out. And he looks like a good quarterback. And he struggled a little bit in the divisional round against the Dallas Cowboys, but they end up winning the game to face the Philadelphia Eagles. And then just right in that first quarter, Hassan Reddick with the pass rush blows out his UCL. We had no idea that he had a UCL tear, and it was a very unwatchable NFC Championship. The 49ers lost to the Eagles 31-7. And by the way, the Eagles played the Chiefs very tough in last year's Super Bowl. In fact, they had a double-digit lead. And so the biggest what if Brock Purdy did not get hurt in that game, do the 49ers beat the Eagles and possibly beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl? Well, all those questions have been answered. And I am just excited that Brock Purdy was able to overcome the odds, get the surgery on the UCL tear, and he is back and better than ever, breaking records for the 49ers, making the Pro Bowl, first Pro Bowl quarterback since Jeff Garcia in the early 2000s, breaking all those passing records, and Brock Purdy is in the Super Bowl, leading the 49ers to the Super Bowl. And it's not, the defense is not the same defense as it was in 2019. I think this will be a different outcome. I think the 49ers have a lot more weapons on offense.
Who wins MVP, by the way? Who's your pick?
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah? Okay.
He had a good regular season. Despite what happened in the AFC Championship, I think that Lamar Jackson wins the MVP.
Okay, well, we'll see. I'm hoping to be at NFL Honors on the Thursday night. I have yet to hear back whether I'm going to be accepted to go or not. I'm hoping to. But it's interesting you talk about Trey Lance going to my Dallas Cowboys now. We got Dak Prescott. He's going to be watching the Super Bowl on TV again. And, there's been opportunities for Dak in the waning moments of pretty much every big game. He's had a chance to march the ball down the field and win, and he hasn't been able to do it. Brock Purdy, as I mentioned, has done it the last two. That's what you pay for. You can have all those regular season gaudy stats, but I had a friend who played, his name wouldn't mean anything to you, but for my 20 years in the CFL, Matt Dominguez played for the Denver Broncos and Jets. And he goes, regular season makes all-stars, playoffs make legends. And Mahomes is already a legend. We've talked about that. This is Purdy's chance, man. I would say with what we've talked about here, it's got me pretty hyped up for the Super Bowl. I don't think it would take much to get America hyped up for this game. What do you think would be the matchup America would have been wanting of the 32 teams?
Of the 32 teams,
what would be the dream matchup?
Oh, Steelers and Cowboys. I mean, we've seen that Super Bowl at least 3 times. I mean, that's the two most popular teams in this country. I mean, everybody would want to see Steelers, Cowboys, or Patriots, Cowboys. I think the Patriots have lost a little bit of their lackluster when Tom Brady left, and now Bill Belichick has left. But when you talk about popular teams in this country, the Green Bay Packers, the Dallas Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and right there, the New England Patriots, and you got to throw in the San Francisco 49ers. There's a fan base out there that is my age, growing up with the 49ers, winning the 5 Super Bowls. When I was a kid, all I remember was the 49ers winning Super Bowls. I remember when I was 10 years old, the 49ers went and beat the Cincinnati Bengals when Joe Montana found John Taylor in the end zone. And then the following year, under George Seifert, they went 14-2 and they dominated everybody, and they blew out the Denver Broncos 55-10 in the Super Bowl. And you being a Dallas Cowboys fan, the Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones era where they had Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, and Michael Irvin, broke the heart of my 49ers in 1992 in that NFC Championship, and they did it again in 93. And so guess what the 49ers decided to do? They decided to go get Dion and Richard Dent and Gary Plummer and Ricky Jackson, and they just wanted to buy their championship because they had one goal and one goal in mind, and that was to beat the Dallas Cowboys. And wasn't that a great rivalry in the early 90s? Just to see the 49ers and the Cowboys going back and forth. I miss it. We kind of got a little bit of that in the last couple of years with the Cowboys playing the 49ers in the playoffs. But those were some times. And guess what? The 49ers making their 8th Super Bowl appearance ties the Dallas Cowboys for the second most Super Bowl appearances. You got the Denver Broncos and the Steelers, Cowboys, and the 49ers all with 8 Super Bowls. And then, the Patriots lead the way with 11 Super Bowl appearances.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even when I see highlights of those Cowboys 49ers meetings, I get tingles. Those were great times. That's when I became a Cowboys fan in 90-91 era. When I said Troy's my guy, now you know why. And I didn't want to be selfish by thinking a Cowboys Super Bowl would be what America wants. I didn't want to be presumptuous. I heard a stat today, the economic brand spinoff of Taylor Swift's love affair with Travis Kelce, maybe you saw this today, is worth $331 million. I actually heard it on ESPN. Wow. On the morning show. That's the economic impact of that, and they said, there's going to be bets, Richard. How many times is Taylor Swift shown in a suite at Super Bowl? That'll be a bet on that. There'll be people watching that would have never watched the Super Bowl.
Let's see. CBS is calling the game, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, they're going to show her every time Travis Kelce either gets a touchdown or if there's a bad call that didn't go Kelce's way. It's CBS. I've watched Chiefs games on CBS, and they love Taylor Swift. That's all they want to cover is Taylor Swift. But I tell you what, Rod, the Taylor Swift effect is having an effect on non-sports fans because my 2 daughters who do not like sports are watching football with me because of Taylor Swift.
That's what I'm talking about. So, when I say, who does America want? I don't think the NFL is upset that this is the matchup. It's good for business, as Tommy Cutlets would say. Good for business.
All right. Well, we are 2 weeks away from the Super Bowl. We got plenty of time to preview the matchup. Like you mentioned, Rod, it's still early to talk about the matchup, but let's talk about the teams that didn't make it to the Super Bowl. I want to start with the Baltimore Ravens because there was a lot of hype this year. They were the overall number 1 seed. Really, after demolishing the 49ers on Christmas, I thought that this Baltimore Ravens team was probably the best Ravens team that John Harbaugh has had, and that includes the team that went to the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco because their defense was lights out. When they acquired Roquan Smith, that defense changed. Kyle Hamilton, one of the best safeties. You even have a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, who he's just resurrected his career in Baltimore. And overall, this was the first time that Lamar Jackson had the weapons he did with Zay Flowers. But they did not show up. They didn't show up in this game. And Zay Flowers cost them this game with the fumble. And then, before the taunting penalty. And the Ravens had chances to get this game in where they could feel comfortable. They could probably win this game because they were playing at home. I wasn't completely impressed with the Chiefs' offense. I was actually more impressed with the Chiefs' defense. They had a game plan for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, and they were shut out. Snead with the punching out of the football. You make a play like that, and that could flip the momentum, and that's why the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. And another disappointing year for the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, I've enjoyed the analysis, but the analysis is just talk. It's like what we're doing right now. All that matters is what goes on the field, right? So you're right about Flowers' turnover affected the game. Lamar's end zone interception was a terrible throw. You don't see Patrick Mahomes make those throws. And let's not forget, Lamar got the bag in the offseason. They didn't pay him to be the MVP of the NFL. They paid him to win the Super Bowl, right, Rich? Or be in the Super Bowl. So when you say they didn't show up, I don't know what the right answer is on this, but it's like, are they a great team that just ran into the wrong team in this Chiefs era? Like, you know what I mean? Like 10 years ago, do they have a better chance of going to the Super Bowl, but they just ran into a better Chiefs team? I don't buy that. They're at home for a reason, you know? And it was the defense shut out Kansas City in the second half. That is maybe the best defense in the NFL, and it's supposed to win you championships. It was Lamar in the offense that cost him the game. I know people get upset about that. He's from here, and there's a lot of people that know him and they love him, but so what? Nice guys run the Kinsman Club. Nice guys finish last. It was an opportunity missed.
Rod, I 100% agree with you. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions. Another opportunity miss. The Detroit Lions were playing in their first conference championship since 1992. I remember this team. They were taking on, that Washington team that went on to win the Super Bowl, probably one of the greatest teams in NFL history, with Mark Ripken, Gary Clark, Art Monk, Ricky Sanders, Ernest Biner was on that team. And the Detroit Lions had Barry Sanders, Herman Moore, Eric Kramer. I mean, they were just an up-and-coming team. They had no shot at winning that game. But this game, taking on the 49ers, punching them in the mouth in that first half, going up 24-7, and their head coach, Dan Campbell, he had some encouraging words. I know Lions fans are devastated, and it is so hard to get to this point. I kind of feel like, they're going to be a good team, and they should be back. I don't know if they'll get back to here because, you have teams like the Cowboys and the Eagles, and you also have the Green Bay Packers who are going to be really good next year. So it is really hard to get back to the pinnacle of the mountaintop when you reach the conference championship. But, I mean, this has just got to be a gut punch for Lions fans that they're not going to the Super Bowl. And I'm happy that my team won, but I'm also heartbroken for Lions fans.
Yeah, it's a little like Bengals fans going to the Super Bowl after all those years, right, with Joe Burrow, and then this year he gets hurt, and so I think Detroit will be back, and here's why. I'm a defender and a fan of their coach, and I've heard what their players have said about Dan Campbell. He's been there. He's fought the trenches battle himself as a player, and he doesn't ask the players to do anything that he hasn't done himself. The one thing I wonder is, did Jared Goff play above his head to get there? He's not a kid. Jared Goff's been around a while. You know what I mean? And he even still, he can't do it alone. But I just think Dan Campbell is the new breed of coaching. Coaching, Richard, you are in sports every day. You know the importance of it. You need to love your coach. You need to believe in your coach. And I think Detroit does. There's an analyst here I'm not in Canada anymore, but there's a Canadian analyst, Davis Sanchez. He's on TSN. He played in the league with San Diego. I can't remember who else. But he said the Lions players will lose faith in Dan Campbell because of those fourth down gambles lost. And I don't believe that. Do you?
No, not for a second.
No, me either.
I do believe that Ben Johnson, who this is the reason why he's going to be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders, is because he was an offensive genius. And his play calling in that first half against the 49ers. The 49ers, who have a very good defense with very good linebackers, Fred Warner, Drake Greenlaw, their defensive line with Chase Young and Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, and Eric Armstead. I mean, they have Pro Bowl talent in the entire defensive roster, and they had no answer for the Detroit Lions in that first half. I mean, it was very hard to watch, and I was thinking to myself, how are the 49ers going to stop them? And I don't think Brock Purdy is going to be able to get in a shootout with Jared Goff.
Well, hey, I think we could agree, as guys that have been around football a long time, the Lions stopped themselves. You talk about how heartbreaking it is with the coaching decisions by Campbell, the drops that we talked about, and their inability to stop the 49ers on defense in the second half. San Francisco owned that second half. So you talk about them losing Ben Johnson, they may. The Chiefs lost Eric Bieniemy, and that was supposed to slow them down. It didn't. So I think the Lions will be fine. There's as a Cowboys fan, there's no reason to think, Richard, they're going to be a threat. In case you missed it, Mike McCarthy is coming back. So I think the Lions have as good a shot as anybody to be back next year. I really do.
Rod, let's switch gears, then we'll close it. There's one more coaching vacancy left, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. I feel that Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick are being shut out of coaching jobs. I was listening to Sports Talk Radio, and there's people that are just hesitant about hiring Bill Belichick. That's one of the reasons why the Falcons went in the direction of getting Raheem Morris and not Bill Belichick, because Belichick wants to have personnel control. And in this day and age, and with football and the way it is, the Patriot way is just not what people are looking for in a coach. I think Belichick's success was because he had Tom Brady, he had Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator, he had Dante Scarnecchia as an offensive line coach. I mean, the Patriot way worked because you had probably the one quarterback that had the most and the toughest work ethic of any quarterback in the history of the game. I mean, nobody worked harder than Tom Brady. And you also have Bill Belichick, and it was a perfect marriage. But it's just not working out in today's game. And that's why I think that Bill Belichick, I mean, he could get the Seattle job, but then Seattle would go from a defensive coach like Pete Carroll going to Bill Belichick, and I don't think that the GM is going to want to have Belichick, making personnel decisions. I mean, if you look at, he whiffed on Mac Jones. He doesn't draft skill positions very well. I just don't know if Bill Belichick is going to get a head coaching job. I mean, it's just the way it is in 2024.
I don't think he's going to now. And I'm like you. We just go by what we hear. I just love the Patriot way was what it was. They've made movies about it. It was amazing. But to think that Bill Belichick could pick it up and go do it somewhere else is a misnomer. Let's remember that goes back 20 plus years. He's 71 now, Rich. So he's not going to coach the next 20 years anywhere. And I love, if this is true, and I believe that it is, that Belichick sat down with the owner in Atlanta, and it was Arthur Blank, and said, I want it to be just you and me. We don't need a president. We don't need a GM. This is the way it worked in New England, just me and Robert. This is what I want. And the Falcons didn't like that. Rich McKay and Terry Fontenot, right? And I'm like, hey, why wouldn't Bill ask for it? It's similar to Harbaugh with the Chargers. If what we hear is correct, he kept asking for more and more and more control and the structure that he wanted. And every time they said no, he threatened to go back to Michigan until he got what he wanted. So Vrabel's a different case, and he's a younger guy. He can afford to sit out a year or two. I would like to think Mike Vrabel can be selective with his next job. I would have thought that would have been a perfect fit in New England, wouldn't you, Vrabel?
Oh, absolutely. But I do think there might be some head coaching positions that are going to be opening up next year if these teams don't make the playoffs. The Chicago Bears, the New York Jets, possibly the New York Giants, although I'm a fan of Brian Dable. But I think, look, the Eagles, Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat. They went and got Kellen Moore from the Chargers, and they got Vic Fangio. When you have to replace both your coordinators, you're on the hot seat. And Nick Sirianni's going to have to win, next year. I mean, not just a playoff game. The Eagles have to be Super Bowl contenders next year. Otherwise, I think Nick Sirianni's out of a job.
I'm shocked he kept his job this year. I'm shocked.
Yeah, so am I.
And I felt bad because we had people writing into the show asking if I thought he's going to be fired. I'm like, yeah, he deserves to be fired. But I forgot how football works. Throw your assistants and then your coordinators in front of the bullet. And that's what Sirianni did. But to be honest, you mentioned the Seahawks. As we sit here today, I have absolutely no idea who's going to be their next head coach.
I thought maybe they would try to get Dan Quinn, but the Dallas defense would end up suffering. I think that's That's what's keeping Dallas has got a great defense, mainly because of Dan Quinn. I mean, they also have very special players, but Dan Quinn is deserving of a head coaching position. I do think he should get a shot. I kind of feel like Atlanta ran him off a little too soon. I mean, a lot of that stuff was just unfortunate. I mean, 2020 was a crazy year. It was a COVID year. The Falcons lost games where they had a 99.9% chance of winning. I mean, I talk about to your Dallas Cowboys, that 40-39 loss. I'm thinking of that loss against the Chicago Bears when the Bears put in Nick Foles. The writing was written on the wall. Dan Quinn lost his job after starting the year 0-5. And to be honest with you, the Falcons should have let Raheem Morris just have the full-time gig. I mean, we're back to square one. The 3 years later, the Arthur Smith experience didn't work out, and the Falcons went and hired Raheem Morris, and they should have just hired him in the first place.
Well, I think it's funny. They're talking about, whoever the Falcons were going to end up with, or any coach wants a quarterback. And I'm like, the Falcons don't have one. Last I checked. Right?
Nope, they don't.
It's been a revolving door and a carousel of quarterbacks in Atlanta. I feel
Rod, I think we lost you.
I can hear you. Did I lose you? I'll go back to where the Wi-Fi is.
Oh, no. Just go ahead and pick up your train of thought from where you started. Atlanta doesn't.
I'm not sure they're any further ahead with what they've done, but at least Raheem's known in the building.
Yeah, and he is also a good coach of player development. All right. Well, Rod, I really appreciate you being on the show. It was a lot of fun. Looking forward to the Super Bowl and have a safe trip down there. I know you're going to be excited being a part of Radio Row and being in Vegas for the Super Bowl. And so wish you the best of luck and enjoy your show and just keep up the good work. I enjoyed just hearing you right before my show comes on WQEE. Before I let you get out of here, tell everybody how they can listen to you and how they can subscribe to the YouTube channel and if you're on social media as well.
WQEE, obviously, 99.1 FM, your southern home of sports and talk, the key. RodPederson.com for my daily commentary, that kind of thing. Look me up on social media like you have. There's a lot of ways to find us, and we're on YouTube under The Rod Pederson Show. So if you can't listen live, you can always catch us there. Thanks, Rich. It's an honor to warm up for you, the headliner, the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge.
Absolutely. That is Rod Pederson, host of the Rod Pederson Show. You can catch him on WQEE right on before me. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge and watching us on Facebook Live. Have a great rest of your night.